Tucker, we are live.
Hello everyone, welcome to today's Product People event. Thank you so much for joining us. Before starting, I would like to remind you that you can see the stream in different platforms such as YouTube, LinkedIn. This talk will also be recorded and saved in YouTube, and we will also have a Slido for you to give us some insights and ask questions to the speaker. Today, our topic is More Than S.M.A.R.T, an advanced guide to designing effective goals. Florin, who is a director of product at NPAL, will present it. I am also really excited about this topic since, as a PM, I also use the S.M.A.R.T framework when I define a goal for a feature. Before starting the presentation, I would like to share a quick introduction about myself and Product People. I am Çakıl. I'm based in Turkey. I am a product management consultant at Product People. I have been working at Product People for more than 2.5 years, and I had a chance to experience building and delivering B2B and B2C digital products in startup and corporate environments, thanks to Product People. I also would like to mention a little about Product People. We do interim product management and product leadership. We also have one of the largest PM communities in EU with 50K members. We would like to ask a question to you to adapt you to the topic. Our question is, how often do you use the S.M.A.R.T framework when you define your goals as a product manager? Options are always, often, not sure what S.M.A.R.T framework is. Please go to Slido, provide the code or scan the QR to answer this question. Okay, we are waiting for answers on Slido. I see already a few answers. Let's give some more time for the others. Okay, I think we have enough answers. Let's check the results. Often is chosen mostly, and then always option comes next. No one selected not sure what S.M.A.R.T framework is, so I think we have the right audience. Okay, so now we are ready to start. I am handing over to Florin. The stage is yours, Florin.
All right. Thank you very much, Çakıl. So that's great to hear that so many people are using it. I guess the strategic choice of using advanced in the subtitle worked very well. So before we begin, a couple of things about myself. Like you heard, I'm director of product with NPAL, and I've been in product management for quite a while now. Before NPAL, I was with Share Now. You might know the car sharing company as the head of product there, leading also the OKR process. And throughout my product management and a bit throughout the BI and a bit throughout the software engineering career, I, like many of you, I had to wrestle a bit with the question, so what are we doing? Why? Like, what are we actually trying to achieve? And particularly when people are asking us to pursue certain goals, this is becoming more important because it's in our hands as product people to define goals that are meaningful, that feel energizing, that are motivating, that are meaningful. So now the S.M.A.R.T framework is an approach to this, but there are some elements around it that might require a bit more attention. So this is what I'm trying to convey today. It's going to be a bit abstract. Sorry. It's going to be abstract at times. I'm going to try to keep it concrete as well.
Florence,
And yeah,
can you also share your screen? I think you forgot to share your presentation.
sharing screen. There you go. I hope you can all see it.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
So let's dive in. Let's take a look at goals in general, right? So there are goals and goals. We can say, let's do something, right? That's a goal. Let's clean up. Let's go outside. Let's fix our bike. That's a goal. Or let's achieve this result. Let's achieve something. Let's accomplish something, right? For example, when you say let's do this thing, somebody might come to you and say, like, you know what would be great? Let's have a loyalty program. Or they can say, well, let's increase customer retention using gamification or whatever you want. Integration of a knowledge base, for example, could be framed as reduce the customer service contacts through self-serve solutions. See the difference? One of them is very specific in terms of the solution. The other one is more open on the problem space. Another example here, allowing for guest checkout. People from e-commerce know what I'm talking about here. Or you can say, well, we have some problems with checkout conversions. Let's figure it out, right? So the left side is what we call outputs. The right side is what we call outcomes. Now, you can already tell, and I think I'm preaching to the choir here, but outcomes are better than outputs. So in multiple ways. So most of it is about creativity, is about moving away from a predefined solution into more of an exploration where we assume that we don't know everything and we iterate. We also try to prioritize against other goals. There's multiple benefits here. The talk is not about this. The talk is about how do we create an outcome-focused goal that makes sense and that delivers the value that we're looking for. Let's go to the S.M.A.R.T framework. You all said that you are familiar with it. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. These are the 5 qualities of the S.M.A.R.T framework. Now, these are also ways of asking yourself, is this goal well defined? Does this goal fulfill my purpose? How can I refine this goal to make it better? And throughout the talk today, we're going to focus on each of these angles and explore maybe a bit more advanced aspect of it. So let's jump into specific. What metric expresses best our desired outcome? That's a question that you could ask yourself to see if your goal is specific. By the way, for each of these aspects, we will look at 3 different properties. So first one for specificity is clarity. When we're talking about something specific, is something where it avoids vague statements such as, oh, let's have our website perform better. Yeah, what does it mean better? And in this case, for example, could be, well, let's reduce the average page load. It reduces the expression of the goal, right, of the outcomes. Then it should be also specific to the team, to your domain. Just because the entire somebody says, oh, we need to increase the sales by 20%, that doesn't mean your team or your domain can do something about it. Much better for your team, for example, if you're the manager of the checkout page, would be increase conversion on the checkout by 10%. And a bit deeper, it needs to be specific to the problem. And here I see often issues. For example, when you look at increased 7-day retention by 10%, that looks great. But if you take the problem might be too big, because 7-day retention, you're measuring in like you see a certain funnel there, that you might be able to narrow down the problems to a certain rediscovery process where you say, well, actually what we notice is that the biggest drop is the customer activation in the first day. Because otherwise, if you focus on the 7-day retention, you might miss the entire point, the entire problem that you're trying to solve. Moving forward to measurability, how do we know we're there? And in general, actually, an outcome goal should make it very, very clear when we have arrived. If you don't know if you have arrived, that means the goal is not well set. So measurability is a very important part of it. Now, measurable means quantifiable. We can put a number on it, right? For example, customer happiness. Customer happiness in general, if you say, oh, we want to increase customer happiness. Yeah, but how do we measure it? You can even say increase customer happiness as measured by NPS, and then you say increase by how much, right? Now, leading indicator versus lagging indicator. This is a bit more, again, it's a bit more advanced. So when we are talking about certain metrics, some of them we can measure faster and some of them take a while to mature. For example, customer lifetime value. How do we know, or when can we measure customer lifetime value? Well, after the customer is not our customer anymore. That's the lifetime value, right? So after their lifetime has ended, we can measure their value, the revenue they have generated for the company, and that's the CLV, right? But that means we need to wait until they do something that we don't want them to do, which is churn. Instead, we can use a proxy KPI, it's called, for example, in this case, average revenue per paying user. That's a leading indicator because then we have, okay, every week we can have ARPPU. We are measuring, we can measure this KPI. So it's easier to act on it. And in time, that KPI will lead to higher customer lifetime value. The third aspect here, again, it's a bit more, let's say, refined, is data availability. You won't notice until you actually hit that wall. And I can tell you a story from the ShareNote days. We wanted to decrease the number of accidents. We noticed, okay, DUIs, driving under influence, was a big problem, and we wanted to reduce it. Now, the problem is with DUIs, you only know if an accident is caused by somebody driving drunk later, when the police reports that well, yes, they know about this particular accident, and yes, the driver was drunk. But if the driver is running away, we are missing that information, and nobody is gonna provide that data just freely. So we needed to use a KPI that was measuring something more available. For example, speeding tickets. Speeding tickets is something that you were capturing faster because the communication is differently, right? So with the assumption that speeding is leading to accidents. I mentioned a couple of times here, proxy KPIs is something to explore. Take it as homework, look into it if you have never worked with this. All right, that's with measurability. But before we move forward, let's remember that measurable doesn't always require quantitative goals. You have qualitative goals, such as, okay, customer happiness, or you can also have binary goals, such as we have released X, this is compliant with rule Y, that are just as measurable because you can tell, you can look at it. Like if you have customer happiness and you measure by NPS or customer satisfaction, a score, a survey, then you can measure it. All right, we're 2 out of 5. We are achievability. Now, what value are we aiming for? This is where most of the discussions happen in the teams. So, and I've been myself in both positions, in the position of defining or proposing a value as a PM, and in the position of pushing back or kind of challenging a certain proposal from the team as a product leader. And the approach I'm suggesting here is, yes, we want to be ambitious. We basically think about what is the most optimistic but achievable approach number, right? So if everything will go perfectly, knowing what we know right now, what in our dreams, what would we hope to see, right? Not something crazy. It needs to be still motivating, because if it's too much, then it's not motivating anymore. It feels like a nightmare. So, but we aim for this perfect ideal number, right? And we know, particularly in the OKR framework, OKR says 70, 80% is still good enough. But that's exactly to stimulate ambition there. We also need to keep in mind the needs of the company and or the customer. So if the customer needs a certain number, we should really be ambitious and reach that performance. And then higher level goals might be more flexible. So for example, if we say, well, we need to reach profitability, well, that means we need a certain lower level of costs. So our goals should aim to contribute towards that common goal. Realistic side, look in the past, look at what you've done before, look at what segments of your domain actually have the best or the worst performance, benchmark it, try to orient yourself in terms of what is realistic, what is doable. But also keep in mind what is feasible, what your team can do right now, not the ideal team, the team that is right now, that is in place with the product that you have right now, the current velocity, with the current technical constraints and tech debt, with the current confidence. So, and just keep all these things in mind when you discuss achievability. You will probably hear versions of the S.M.A.R.T framework where the A is actually actionable, stands for actionable. I would suggest that actionable is already included in achievable. So I think you're fine if you stay with achievable, because if you're thinking about is this goal achievable, automatically you're thinking about, can I act on it? Can I do something about it, which is the actionability. So feel free to put that aside, stay with achievable for now. All right. I hope you're still with me here. We have two more. And this one, the relevant actually, I find the relevancy one of the most important. And honestly, the relevant side, it's more difficult to teach, because should we work on something? Is this relevant? Depends on where your company or your product is at the moment. What is the strategy? This is an alignment topic. You need to understand the company priorities. You need to, ideally, you would have a set of high-level objectives that you can connect with. You would also understand how your own team KPIs are integrated into the higher-level KPIs. KPI trees are very helpful here. And you also need to understand how much the impact is diluted. What do I mean by this? Is if let's say you want to improve the conversion of a page, but on that page you only get 2% of your traffic. Doesn't matter if you increase the conversion of that page by 50%, you will still not contribute sufficiently towards the larger goal. So it doesn't become relevant. You might as well work on something that has higher impact. Now, the topic of vanity KPIs. Let me get some water. So, whenever you hear about vanity KPIs, you hear about, oh, we have reached that many new users, that many daily active users, and so on. While in some situations, these can be relevant KPIs to aim for, such as a North Star metric, most of our goals should use performance KPIs, not vanity KPIs. In other words, I gave here the example of average lead conversion rate. Because when we say we want to reach a certain number of new users in March, it doesn't tell us how. It depends on so many topics, and that might happen simply because people all of a sudden something becomes viral, right? But when we're talking about the conversion rate for a certain page, and you're the owner of that product, that is where you want to be. It needs to be relevant for that particular KPI. And also relevant for that particular moment, right? You have to ask yourself, why is now the best time to work on this? Of course, we can do a lot of things and we can do them at any time, but there's an opportune moment, and sometimes it's too early or sometimes it's too late. Just because you wanted to work on this half a year ago, that doesn't mean that's still relevant right now. I hope this makes sense. One mention here, remember the KPI tree as a tool. Again, a homework for you. If you don't know what a KPI tree means, feel free to research and use it. And one more food for thought. I know that in the SMART acronym, the R is towards the end. But I think the R should be the first question that you should ask yourself. Whenever a topic is being brought to your team, you should ask yourself, is this really important right now? Does this mean what I think it means? Is this moving us in the right direction? Is this contribute? Should we really work on this? And this is where the strategy is important and where you need to push back pretty much, or ask for clarity from your product leads. Another way of looking at this, remember back we were talking about output versus outcomes. Now, there are situations in which certain goals can be expressed as an output. It's not a problem. Output, as long as they're relevant, output can be allowed. And that becomes a project at that point. You know exactly what you want to achieve and you want to release it. For example, you want to release it in your product in a new country. Well, sounds like an output, right? Of course, you can also take the time and try to turn it into an outcome. In this case, for example, say, we want to have 1,000 happy customers in country A. But just keep in mind, there's nothing inherently wrong with output goals, except the fact that very often they're not relevant because they're not measurable enough. All right, and the last element of the SMART framework, time bound. Why is this important? Well, we need to give ourselves a bit of a box, right? I think the Parkinson law says every work will take all the time we allow it to take, right? So the work expands to fill that time. So we need to have a timeline. Very often when we're using OKRs or goal setting or roadmap, we have a roadmap for a particular period of time. We don't just say, well, let's reach 100,000 active users. We'll say, okay, let's increase the daily active users by week 13, for example. But even more, you can even be more precise there. Like, how do you measure this 10% by week 13? Does that mean on the Monday of week 13, I'm measuring the daily active users, and now I'm comparing it with the Monday of the planning week? And no, be very specific. Say, okay, we want to increase by 10%. We want to increase it from 10,000 because that's where it is right now to 11,000. And we want to measure that in 2 consecutive weeks, measured as a 7-day running average. I was overdoing it here a bit, but you understand the point. Make it clear how you want to measure it. And then also keep in mind that shorter times are better. So if you have a goal that you say, okay, we want to refactor something, or we want to release into another country, or some audacious large goal, try to make it smaller. Release the first proof of concept, try to measure the first impact, and split those goals in multiple planning cycles. All right, that was SMART, but let's make it different. Let's add health metrics. Why? So I say here, let's make it SMART. I did not know exactly where to put the H, to be honest. Like, I was hard, it became complicated. So SMART sounded very, very good, particularly since we live in Germany. All right, so why should we improve on the SMART framework, right? It's because there's some things are still missing there. Health metrics is one of them. If you don't know what a health KPI is, it's also sometimes called counter KPI. It's trying to understand, okay, is it possible that this goal can actually lead to negative outcomes? And then we put a health statement there. In other words, for example, we say, we want to reduce average customer service by 20%, customer service contact or costs, right? Well, yeah, I mean, obviously, this can result in an impact on customer satisfaction because, yeah, sure, we don't answer the phone 20% of the time. Of course, we're going to have less costs, right? But this will impact the customer satisfaction, right? That's a health metric. Metric manipulation, unfortunately, is a topic. So we want, for example, if we say, well, we want to have more leads, yeah, but then we're going to buy garbage traffic and we will not have the same conversion. We'll have a lot of leads in the beginning of the funnel, but in the end, they will not turn into customers. And tech KPIs are also something very important. Particularly when we scale, we might want to get more traffic or more conversions, but we also don't want our infrastructure to suffer. So, however you see that fitting your exact team topic. All right, so that's a S.M.A.R.T variation. But there's one more thing. There's one thing that is missing. Is this goal that we have defined in a smart way, is this a good goal? What do I mean by this? Ethical. The ethical element was not included here. We can use SMART goals, we can use SMART goals, but still aim to do the wrong thing, right? Or things that have side effects. Environmental and social impact is an obvious way of looking at it, right? Is your goal, is your success actually creating pollution or waste or resource depletion, right? Are we paying attention to human rights, diversity, inclusion, and elements, other ethical elements, right? So that's the obvious way. But there's also, how do we make sure that this is happening? So we need to integrate that into the decision-making process. So we need to define the goals in the moment when we discuss the context. We need to make space for it, and also the strategy ideally should include that. It is not all in your hands, but you can signal, by the way. So, and then an ethical culture. That means if you're working on something or you hear something that is being worked on in your company, ideally you work in a company in which you can speak up. So having an environment where everybody feels empowered to speak up is fundamental there. Some food for thought. So now we run into this problem. So how do we put this E into the acronym? And so I was talking to my friend ChatGPT, and it just came up with only one option, which is hamster. So everybody, I give you the hamster framework. Yeah. I asked DALL-E to make me a hamster pointing to like a smart hamster that looks like the drawings of Calvin and Hobbes. And that's what it came out. Clearly, it also has the tiger lines on it. So, yeah, I hope this tells the story or it makes it memorable. And this is once again all these qualities of the framework of defining effective goals, starting from SMART and going a bit beyond. I hope this made sense. So time for Q&A.
Thank you, Florin, for introducing the hamster framework and for insights. Let me quickly share my screen again for Q&A section. Okay, thank you everyone also for listening. We will now start the Q&A session. Please feel free to go to our Slido and put all the questions you might have to Florian. I would like to share more about product people to give you some time to think about your questions. Let me continue with use cases to engage with product people. We work as interim product managers to cover permanent positions and parental leaves. We do coaching to improve the efficiency of the product development processes and upskill the product teams. Last but not least, we help with product discovery processes by conducting market and user research and building MVPs from scratch. Here you can see some B2C clients we have worked with before, like Zalando, Tier, FreeNow, or DeepL. And when it comes to B2B clients, we worked with companies like World Health Organization, Reboot, Cognigy. I would like to share some key stats. We have supported 300 cross-functional teams. We are 42 in-house and full-time product managers and product leaders. 62% of our team are women in the team, and 66% of them are in leadership team. And now we can continue with Q&A. Okay. I see we have already some questions. Let me start with the first one. What is one piece of advice you would give to someone using the S.M.A.R.T framework for the first time?
For the first time, start where you are. And sometimes we feel like we need to convince the others that we are in the right of creating these goals. Just imagine, let's say a stakeholder is coming to you and says, you need to build this. Of course, you might be boiling inside, like, yeah, but we should talk about outcomes, not output, and let's define this. What is the problem you're trying to solve? How do we measure success, and so on? Start from where you are. Try to understand the point of view of the person who brought this up, and try to refine it, even when the others are not aware of what you're doing. Just try to understand. Okay, so how do we know that this is working? Like, where would you like to see? What is the driver of this? What numbers would you like to see moving? And try to understand the other person's point of view. And if you don't agree on, okay, then let's reformulate your goal from an output to an outcome, and let's make it smart. Do it for yourself. Just say, if I were to have full power over how I define this goal, what would I do? Or what would that would that goal look like? And play with it. Then talk to your engineering counterpart and say, well, how would we do this? I mean, let's try to figure something out. Get some senior people involved. Maybe you have a product lead that can support you there. Jump in, try to run it. You'll get better. Like with every single skill, you will get better the more you do it. And this is not, you don't need to believe in it. You don't need to, it's not orthodox. You can just do it once, iterate on it, and as long as it's gonna feel right, and you'll see that the team will react to well-defined goals in a different way.
Thank you, Florin, for detailed answer. Our second question is, if you see you are not reaching the goal, would you adjust them or define a new one?
Yeah, I've heard this question before. As with many things in product management, it depends, right? You might realize that the goal is wrongly set, but the goal itself, so the wrong KPI, it's not necessarily the wrong value, the wrong KPI. So if you feel like, well, we cannot work on day one retention because we discovered that we did 1 year ago a lot of work there, and we don't believe in it. We don't think this is achievable. However, how about we focus on day 3 retention, or how about we focus on re-engagement or other KPIs? So if you need to change the KPI, you should do it anytime. So whenever you discover that your assumptions were wrong, change it. That said, most often this question comes up, oh, well, we set a very ambitious goal and we decided it during the quarter. We noticed that actually that's not doable. And no matter how much we iterate, we're not gonna reach that. That's fine. Do your best, get as far as you can, be open with everybody that was involved in that planning, in that goal definition, and say, you know what, based on our current understanding, right? We had these assumptions, this proved to be wrong. Right now, we don't think we're gonna increase by 70%. We believe we can increase maximum by 10%. Should we still pursue it, or should we pivot? And then, I mean, the worst thing you can do is to try to push under the assumption that, because your resources were allocated based on a certain assumption of impact, to assume that you should continue. No, bring it up. Every time you have a surprise, maybe I should even call it learning, you should reevaluate. If I am to suggest a strategy book that is talking about this very specifically, is The Art of Action by Stephen Bungay. So it's talking about, well, we are setting a strategy, then people start executing on it, but everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face, right? That's what Mike Tyson apparently said. So you're the team out there, you try something. If it doesn't look like it's working and it doesn't look like it's a winning battle, take a step back, regroup, and figure it out. Do I still want to continue here, or do we want to focus on something else? And if I would not say reformulate or reset the goal, I would say decide if you want to keep doing it, right? Because in the end, the number doesn't really matter. What matters is the progress that you're making. I hope this answered the question.
Thank you, Florin. Let me continue with the next question. Are there some tools, frameworks, sites you could recommend to help us determine if our SMART goals are good?
Talk to people, I would say. I mean, this in itself, the SMART framework is supposed to help you answer exactly that, right? It gives you a step-by-step recipe of how to test your goals if they are properly formulated. If you're unsure, talk to a product lead, talk to a senior product manager in your network. Ask on the LinkedIn community. Say, well, you know what, I'm trying to define this goal. Who can help me? Just we are all learning from each other. So just try to connect with other people and get support.
Perfect. Thank you, Florin. We also received a question related to ethic section. The question is based on general missions and values of corporate growth or business strategies. How important is ethics section for even just small projects or decisions? And how to integrate it into working style of employees from bottom to high level?
I think with the ethics, by the way, if you read the Marty Kagan's books, Inspired and Transformed, you will see that it's also mentioned there. Ethics are an important topic to keep in mind. Now, and to be honest about. There are situations in which you might have an uneasy feeling. For example, if somebody's asking you, hey, what are you working on? Oh, what is this product doing? If you feel uncomfortable describing exactly what the product is supposed to achieve, or if you get pushback like, wait a second, but isn't that going to increase the CO2, whatever, then it's a sign that the ethical question is important. Most of the time, let's hope we work in organizations where the ethical question is so the ethical compliance is a given, right? It's there to also catch the other situations in which this is not the case.
Thank you, Florin. So let me also ask my question.
Sure.
Do you have any examples of how non-PMs can effectively use the SMART framework? For example, I used SMART framework in my promotion case via sharing examples for competencies.
Yeah, you can do that. And it's even better if you decide on those goals together with your manager. And so development goals don't always need to be created by the manager or given to you. They can also be, created by yourself. So I think if I understand the question correctly, using the SMART goals or SMART approach to goal setting it's actually signals two things. One, you know how to formulate goals that are measurable and achievable and so on, right? So you are able to apply this to your work. And two, you're so confident with it that you can actually apply it and put your skin in the game there and apply it to your own promotion. That said, like, I would also suggest that you use it for your team as well, because good, effective goal setting is a multiplier. It makes an entire team work better and achieve more with the same resources. People are happier. People are more driven when they come to work. They know what they're supposed to do. They know why that is important. So it's effective in a personal setting. Is even more powerful in a team leadership setting.
Thank you, Florin. We went through all questions. Thank you so much for sharing these insights with us and for answering our questions. So let me continue with final slides. We have an amazing, diverse team, and we are hiring. If you would like to apply, feel free to scan the first QR code. If you would like to subscribe our Product People newsletter to receive inspiring content in product management, scan please second QR code. And next week we have Elena, who will have a talk on accelerate your career, unlock your product leadership superpower. Please feel free to join us again. And thank you everyone for joining us, and see you next time.